Some people on the Republican side are not getting that. They're still saying, well, we'll just go through the appeals process and we'll just get this reversed and everything will be fine. Okay, what, like 2026? We'll get a clarity on that? Thanks. We have an election to win. Hillary Clinton was an individual who's committed multiple crimes, actual crimes.
I think that's a massive mistake that an appellate court may say, this is going to happen. The defense is going to follow the trail of every one of these jurors when they find out who they are and how they are, where they drove, what they did, every billboard that they saw, all of that. And that's going to be the fodder for appeals that this jury was infected by negativity, that this judge didn't protect their client.
Donald Trump addresses America, and he is responding to the guilty verdict, but he's not alone. A lot of other people are taking this opportunity to spike the football. Whack jobs like Hillary Clinton and Norm Eisen are really excited about this, not recognizing that they have awoken a sleeping giant. The website for Trump went down because of the reaction from many of us and you who have been looking at how we can support the president. So Trump is speaking to America, but he's also reposting a bunch of other reaction from people like Marco Rubio, Jim Jordan, and others. We'll see what he said and go through some reaction before we tune in to the president himself when he addresses America in the aftermath of this case verdict. So here is what Trump posted over on Truth. He says, press conference tomorrow, that's today, 11 a.m. He's going to be speaking at the Trump Tower Atrium, and that will be coming up very soon. But here is what he posted over on True Social. He says, my bookkeeper called a legal expense on the tiny description line of the ledger, called it a legal expense. It was openly paid to my lawyer, at that time a fully accredited one. I was not involved in that designation, but what else could you have called it? It was in fact a legal expense. That is the so-called crime. On top of that, I wasn't allowed by the judge to use in any form the standard reliance on counsel defense. And my lawyer at that time did virtually everything on the non-disclosure agreement. And I assumed that what he did was correct. I did nothing wrong. And frankly, there was nothing done wrong. NDAs are standard. They're commonly used and legal. MAGA 2024 witch hunt. If this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And that is absolutely true. Now, he also posted a couple other stories and videos from people reacting, including this one, which is JD Vance, who's on the short list for the VP slot. Here's what JD said.
The one thing I will say, Jesse, and I'm hearing from constituents all over the state of Ohio, they're frustrated, they're angry, and they're saying, how can we help? What can we do? They feel so powerless, which I certainly understand because this sham prosecution is happening in New York so far away from the state of Ohio. The answer is get involved, Jesse. Go to DonaldJTrump.com, support the president, volunteer for him, donate for him, and please, for the love of God, vote for him in November. Because, Jesse, the thing that we've learned is that these far left people, they don't respect anything but power. That is the only language they speak, and the only way for us to fight back successfully is to elect Donald Trump in November.
Yeah, that's right. And some people on the Republican side are not getting that. They're still saying, well, we'll just go through the appeals process and we'll just get this reversed and everything will be fine. Okay, what, like 2026? We'll get a clarity on that? Thanks. We have an election to win. All right, here's Jim Jordan. He was also out explaining that Trump had the best line here. It doesn't matter what the verdict is. The people are going to override it. The people are going to veto this injustice with their own votes on November.
I still think the best line of the day came from President Trump, and you've said it already. But when President Trump came out and said the real verdict will be on November 5th, he couldn't be more right. Because that day, we, the people, will decide who's going to win, who's going to be our president, not some partisan judge, not some political prosecutor, not 12 people from Manhattan, but we, the people, 330 million of us get to decide on that day. That, to me, is the real takeaway here. I think the American people are going to be clearly and strongly for President Trump. You can feel that. You saw what happened with the website today. You know, President Trump uses a line that I think is so good when he's out on the stump, when he's at these rallies. He says, they're coming after my freedom because I'm fighting for yours. And I think the country sees that even more clear today. And that's why I think he's going to win.
Yeah, I think people have a visceral reaction to bullies and cheaters, and that's what we're watching right now. Trump also had another reaction from Marco Rubio, and let's get that one queued up. Here is Marco, who is also making the rounds, also on the short list for VP. Here is Marco.
But look, here's the end of the day. The best way to deal with this is, number one, go to DonaldJTrump.com, sign up to volunteer, donate, because we need to win this election. That's number two. The real verdict is going to be in November when we win that election. And then I think truly down the road, we're going to have to look at a way, Democrats and Republicans, hopefully together, but I don't know, to prevent this kind of thing from happening again in the future. We cannot become one of those countries where people, once they leave office, are targeted through through the court system
Too
by
late,
their
yeah.
political opponent. That's what happens in Peru. That's what's happened in Brazil. That's what's happened in all these countries. It cannot happen here. And that is the direction
already
we are
happened.
headed right now with what's happened here today. I know voters are going to be outraged. Trump's going to win this election. We got to make sure this never happens to anyone else ever again.
Yeah, well, the way you do that is you win and you clean house. Gone. They're just gone. And I don't know who's in charge of that, but maybe Vivek can come in and clean house. I don't care who it is, but somebody who actually does it. That's Marco. Jonathan Turley also got a repost over there. We have John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. He was out explaining some things. Trump posted this. He said, "My civil rights have been totally violated with this highly political, unconstitutional, and election interfering witch hunt. Our failing nation is being laughed at all over the world." Yeah, it's wild that Trump, he's basically got convicted for election interference. It was falsifying business records with the intent to interfere with the election. That's why I think a lot of the jurors are like, I can't let this happen again. He's running again. We can't let him do it again. So we have to hold him accountable for something in 2016 based on object predicate offenses that are misdemeanors. We don't even know what they are. We don't even know what the jury thought or what the actual crime was that they thought was the object offense that he intended to commit. No idea. So they are literally interfering with the 2024 election by prosecuting Trump 4 times in various locations on made-up charges, and then they come after him for election interference. He says, not only did this highly conflicted, biased judge, Judge Mercan, prevent me from presenting the fact that I did not take a tax deduction on the legal expense, which was marked correctly as a legal expense, the judge also did not allow my lawyers to get tax records from the former attorney, whose name I'm not allowed to mention due to the unconstitutional gag order imposed upon me. Election interference witch hunt. Says the jury instructions given by a highly conflicted judge, Judge Mercan, were unfair, misleading, inaccurate, unconstitutional. They were also very confusing, just what the judge wanted, because there was no crime. So the Biden-Harris campaign came out. They didn't send anybody out outside the courthouse the following day after Robert De Niro came out and sounded like a lunatic. Biden-Harris posted this. They said, "In New York today, we saw that no one's above the law." They need a new writer. I mean, they need to come up with a new line. Clearly, Trump is below the law. He doesn't have any due process. He has no discovery rights. He can't present expert witnesses. He gets overruled on very substantive, important motions and objections. The whole thing's nuts. So he has no rights, essentially. He can't even speak about this case. He's gagged in violation of his First Amendment rights. The first. Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed, they say, that he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain. But today, after today's verdict, does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. There is still only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office, the ballot box. Convicted felon or not, which is kind of waffly language, Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. The threat Trump poses to our democracy has never been greater. He is running an increasingly unhinged campaign of revenge and retribution, as these people are operating a lawfare attack of revenge and retribution. He's prosecuted for a 2017 case. They just got their revenge. We're going to hear from Hillary Clinton, going to do backflips on this. A second Trump term, he says, pledging to be a dictator on day one, which is an out of context joke of a quote, and calling for our Constitution to be terminated. I'm sure he did, so that he can regain and keep power and never leave again. A second Trump term means chaos, as though right now we're living in a nice utopia, ripping away Americans' freedoms and fomenting political violence. And the American people will reject it this November. All right, so that's from Biden-Harris. And now let's add 10 points to your blood pressure. Here is Hillary Clinton. This is what it sounded like when she came out at some stupid speech. She came out and listened to these freakazoids in the crowd just cheering like seals.
Thank you so much. Anything going on today?
Demonic, right? Look at her. So Hillary Clinton was an individual who's committed multiple crimes, actual crimes, criminal charges that were investigated and covered up by the likes of James Comey and the FBI and the DOJ. Multiple crimes. And she's out here mocking Trump. They want him in jail. She's still bitter that she'll never be president. She must feel so bad. I mean, gosh, she had everything. She had the whole country, the whole world. Hillary's gonna win. She's gonna be coronated. She was so incompetent, she lost. Wow. She must feel like a total total loser. And everybody who likes Hillary probably feels just like a total loser. Like, that must have felt good at the moment. But then when they were done clapping like morons, they're like, yeah, Trump's going to be president again. Oh, no. And Hillary lost. And remember when she fell over and they had to throw her in the back of the van like a side of beef? Remember that? Wild. All right. Anyways, that's Hillary. And she's married to Bill, who was on Epstein's Island multiple times, engaging in Lord knows what. So we all know that Hillary and Bill are criminal extraordinaire, the family, but she's out mocking Trump. All right. Anyway, she lost the presidency and will never be president. Okay, so Norm Eisen, one of the individuals who helped orchestrate all of this, in my opinion, with Michael Cohen, just like others created the E. Jean Carroll saga, we have Norm Eisen helping to create the Michael Cohen saga. And he wants jail baby. Listen to them on CNN.
That in the most serious FBR cases, a sentence of imprisonment is routinely imposed. This is the most serious falsifying business records case in the history of the state of New York.
All right, that's all we can take on that. Okay, 16 seconds, we made it. Oh my gosh, there's another 20 seconds on that? We're not gonna do it, sorry. I thought we could get it through it, no way. All right, so we're done with him, Norm Eisen. I can't believe they put him on TV, that guy. So he wants Trump in jail. We got it. We got the gist of it from the 16 seconds. But this is what Jen Psaki had to say, and she's not on her usual show. We know the name of the usual show she's on, but she's not on that one today. So here, I think she's telling Democrats, you guys better calm down over there. You're getting a little bit too excited on this thing, and people are not going to like your gloating.
Hey guys, don't go out there and celebrate. This is still going to be an extremely close race, and there's a lot of things that we need to battle over. What I think is happening in strategy meetings with the president right now is a discussion of what he's going to say when asked. And I don't think he's going to say, yeah, I'm running against a convicted felon, right? That's not his style. Nor do I think he should say that, because I do think it feeds into the politicization that the other side is accusing him of. I could see him saying something to Trump like, no one is above the law, not even you, at the debate, right? So they see the debate as a big moment, right? Not necessarily to battle over the legal cases, but to battle over a lot of things that have not been litigated out there, because this is blocking a lot of things out. Right. And for them, they don't want the legal cases to be the base of the campaign. They want it to be about abortion rights and other issues.
What? They sent the campaign out there like yesterday, 2 days ago. They have merch on their website, free on Wednesday t-shirts that they're selling. This is the campaign, Jen. Now, she knows it's a bad idea. This is her trying to backpedal on this. And Jen Psaki is telling them, you guys better calm down. This is all going to backfire. So we also know that this is going to get reversed on appeal. I think what we saw was not justice at all. It was just show trial, like literally. So it will come back down on appeal. Here is what this analyst from CNN says.
What are the odds of this on appeal for Trump?
I actually think they're pretty good, because there are a number of significant issues of the way this trial was handled. We don't talk about Donald Trump anymore. We talk about the defendant in the case and whether or not the judge did everything the judge was supposed to do to ensure a fair trial, uninfected by the outside world. And I've complained, Aaron, to you that the idea that this jury wasn't sequestered, not even during their deliberations, not to mention for that week before between trial and closings, I think that's a massive mistake that an appellate court may say, this is going to happen. The defense is going to follow the trail of every one of these jurors when they find out who they are and how they are, where they drove, what they did, every billboard that they saw, all of that. And that's going to be the fodder for appeals that this jury was infected by negativity, that this judge didn't protect their client from. That's just one issue, and there are 100 we can talk about.
Yeah, 100 we could talk about. That's exactly right. There are 100 issues. And that's an interesting point, because remember, the judge extended the deliberations, basically let him just kind of hang out for a week, doing Lord knows what, maybe getting some pressure and seeing some things that maybe they shouldn't have seen before they came back for closing arguments and to deliberate. So, of course, it will get reversed on appeal at some point, but that's not the point. Point is, you got to win the battle, because the game is the election. It's not about justice in the end or something like that, which might ultimately happen. It's about the election. It's a political attack, not justice. So Trump's speech is next.
This is a case where if they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone. These are bad people. These are, in many cases, I believe, sick people. When you look at our country, what's happening, where millions and millions of people are flowing in from all parts of the world, not just South America, from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, and they're coming in from jails and prisons, and they're coming in from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're coming in from all over the world into our country, and we have a president and a group of fascists that don't want to do anything about it, because they could right now, today, he could stop it, but he's not. They're destroying our country. Our country is in very bad shape, and they're very much against me saying these things. They want to raise your taxes by 4 times. They want to stop you from having cars with their ridiculous mandates that make it impossible for you to get a car or afford a car, make it very possible for China to build all of our cars. It's a very serious problem that we have. We just went through one of many experiences where we had a conflicted judge, highly conflicted. There's never been a more conflicted judge. Now, I'm under a gag order, which nobody's ever been under. No presidential candidate's ever been under a gag order before. I'm under a gag order, nasty gag order, where I've had to pay thousands of dollars in penalties and fines and was threatened with jail. Think of it. I'm the leading candidate. I'm leading Biden by a lot, and I'm leading the Republicans to the point where that's over. So I'm the leading person for president, and I'm under a gag order by a man that can't put 2 sentences together, given by a court, and they are in total conjunction with the White House and the DOJ, just so you understand. This is all done by Biden and his people.
That's right. Colangelo
maybe his
just
people,
did it.
more importantly. I don't know if Biden knows too much about it, because I don't know if he knows about anything. But he's nevertheless the president, so we have to use his name. And this is done by Washington, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. So we have a judge who's highly conflicted. You know what the confliction is. Nobody wants to write about it, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. If I do, he said, I get put in jail. So we'll play that game a little bit longer. We won't talk about it, but you're allowed to talk about it. I hope you do, because there's never been anybody so conflicted as
We
this.
are, Mr. President.
As far as the trial itself, it was very unfair. We weren't allowed to use our election expert under any circumstances. You saw what happened to some of the witnesses that were on our side. They were literally crucified by this man who looks like an angel, but he's really a devil. He looks so nice and soft. People say, oh, he seems like such a nice man. No, unless you saw him in action. And you saw that with a certain witness that went through hell. And when we wanted to do things, he wouldn't let him. It was a rigged trial. We wanted a venue change where we could have a fair trial. We didn't get it. We wanted a judge change. We wanted a judge that wasn't conflicted. And obviously he didn't do that. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We had a DA who is a failed DA. Crime is rampant in New York, violent crime. That's what he's really supposed to be looking at. Crime is rampant in New York. Yesterday in McDonald's, you had a man hitting him up with machetes. Whoever can imagine even a machete being wielded in a store, in a place where they're eating, and he's going rampant. And Bragg is down watching a trial on what they call crimes. They're falsifying business records. That sounds so bad. To me, it sounds very bad. You know, it's only a misdemeanor, but to me, it sounds so bad. When they say falsifying business, that's a bad thing for me. I've never had that before. I'm falsifying. You know what falsifying business records is? In the first degree. They say falsifying business records. Sounds so good, right? It means that legal expense, I paid a lawyer, totally legal. I paid a lawyer a legal expense. And a bookkeeper, without any knowledge from me, correctly marked it down in the books. A very professional woman, highly respected, she testified, marked it down in the books as a legal expense. So a legal expense,
what else would they call it?
Paid a lawyer, is a legal expense in the books. It's not sheetrock, construction, or any other thing. It's a legal expense. Think of that. This is what the falsification of business records were. And I said, what else are you going to call it?
Great question.
What else are you going to call it? Now, I would have testified. I wanted to testify. The theory is you never testify, because as soon as you testify, anybody, if it were George Washington, don't testify, because they'll get you on something that you said slightly wrong, and then they sue you for perjury.
And then they can ask
But I didn't care about that. I wanted to.
About everything.
But the judge allowed them to go into everything that I was ever involved in. Not this case. Everything that I was ever involved in, which is a first. In other words, you could go into every single thing that I ever did. Was he a bad boy here? Was he a bad boy there? And my lawyer said, what do you need to go through? And all you wanted to do is testify simply on this case, because I would have loved to have testified. To this day, I would have liked to have testified. But you would have said something out of whack, like it was a beautiful sunny day and it was actually raining out. And I very much appreciate the big crowd of people outside. That's incredible what's happening. The level of support has been incredible. So the whole thing is legal expense was marked down as legal expense. Think of it. This is the crime that I committed, that I'm supposed to go to jail for 187 years for. When you have violent crime all over this city at levels that nobody's ever seen before, where you have businesses leaving, and businesses are leaving because of this, because heads of businesses say, man, we don't want to get involved with that. I could go through the books of any business person in this city, and I could find things that in theory, I guess, let's indict him, let's destroy his life. But I'm out there, and I don't mind being out there, because I'm doing something for this country, and I'm doing something for our Constitution. It's very important, far beyond me. And this can't be allowed to happen to other presidents. It should never be allowed to happen in the future. But this is far beyond me. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my presidency. And the people understand it because I just see a poll just came out, the Daily Mail. That was the first one, came out. It was done last night right after the verdict, where I'm up 6 points. 6 points from what we already were. We were leading fairly substantially. We're up 6 points in the Daily Mail poll. Now, maybe other polls come out and says something differently, but a lot of people have predicted it because the public understands and they understand what's going on. This is a scam. There's a rigged trial. It shouldn't have been in that venue. We shouldn't have had that judge. He should have allowed us to have an election expert. We had the best expert, most respected expert, head of the Federal Elections Commission. He was all set to testify. He was waiting for 2 days. And when it was his turn, Bragg's people protested, and the judge knocked him out, said you can't testify. He actually said you can't testify for anything having to do with the trial. You can say what the federal elections is. Well, that doesn't help. Everybody knows that, but you can't testify. So essentially, he wasn't able to testify. Other people weren't able to testify. But with these people, they were able to use people salacious. By the way, and nothing ever happened. It was no anything. Nothing ever happened, and they know it. But they were salacious as they could be, and it had nothing to do with the case, but it had to do with politics. And do you notice the timing? The timing was perfect. This case was dead. It was dropped by every agency, every governmental board. It was dropped by the highly respected Southern District. They said, no, there's no case here. It was dropped by federal election, and that's what it's about. This is about a federal election, not a state election. You're not even allowed to look at it. They took the state and the city, and they went into a federal election. They're not allowed. The people from federal election, Southern District, and Washington dropped the case. Everybody dropped the case. There was no case. Cy Vance dropped the case. And when Bragg came in, he said, this is the most ridiculous case I've ever seen. And who would have a certain person, again, gag order, who would have a certain person like this ever testify? He said, this is essentially one of the worst people I've ever seen ever to testify. He said, the craziest case I've ever seen. This is Bragg. Then when I announced I was running for president, long time later, they decided to revive this case. And they got a judge, Judge Marchand, who was responsible for another case that was also brought. It destroyed the life of a very good man, by the way. Destroyed the life of a very good man who went to prison once, and then they just put him in prison again because they said he lied. He didn't lie. I looked at the statements he made. In fact, he didn't remember something, and they put him in jail. Again, they've destroyed him. With me for many years, he was an honorable person. He was an honest man. And if you look at what he did, supposedly, never happened. There's never been anything like this. Over the education of his grandchildren. Over, he didn't report that he had a car or 2 cars on his income. I don't know. I wonder how many people here have cars. I wonder how many people said, oh, gee, I have a car that's worth X dollars. How do you even figure it? And I guess you do have to report it, but I would say probably almost nobody does. Nobody even thinks about it. They put this man, they destroyed this man, but they put him in jail again because they didn't want him to testify. They didn't want him to testify. That's why he went to jail. Put him in jail twice. He's 77 years old. Now, normally I'd say that's an old guy, but I don't feel 77. Nobody ever says that about me. I'd like them to say, gee, we have to have a little sorrow for this man, because they just don't say that about me, but maybe I'm better off that way. I think I'm probably better off that way. But they put him in jail twice, and you have to see what they put him in jail. And he was threatened by the judge. This man was told, you're going to get 15 years in jail if you don't give up Trump. And he was told that.
That's how they flip people.
You're going to get 15 years in jail. And he made a plea deal because he didn't want to spend the rest of his life. And he was told that viciously.
Yeah.
We're living in a fascist state. He was told that viciously.
Exactly what they did to Cohen.
So you can go to jail for 4 months, 5 months, or you can get 15 years in jail. So do a plea. Almost who wouldn't do that plea? Everyone does those pleas. It's a horrible thing.
Hard not to.
There's a whole group of lawyers that fight that. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. But they destroyed his life. So many other things. You look at Southern District didn't want to bring the case. Nobody wanted to bring the case. And then you know who didn't want to bring the case? Most of all is Bragg. Bragg didn't want to bring it. But then he brought it, and they tried to make it a different case. They didn't say legal expense equal legal expense. Again, if I wrote down and paid a lawyer, and by the way, this was a highly qualified lawyer. Now, I'm not allowed to use his name because of the gag order. But you know, he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows that. Took me a while to find out. But he was effective. He did work. But he wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. You know, they like to use the word fixer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. At the time, he was a fully accredited lawyer. Now, he got into trouble not because of me. He got into trouble because he made outside inside deals, and he had something to do with taxi cabs and medallions, and he borrowed money, and that's why he went. And then he pled to 3 election violations. And as soon as I saw that, I said, I wonder why he did that. He pled. He took a deal. Now, he took a deal because he wanted to get off. In other words, I'll take a plea deal, and I want to get off. And he wanted to make a deal with the Southern District. And they wrote the worst report I think I've ever seen on any human being, other than the report that was written on James Comey by the Inspector General. A very great Inspector General, actually. Wrote a report that was so bad. This one was possibly worse. The Southern District, the judge didn't let us use it. He said, it's hearsay. I said, it's not hearsay. Wouldn't let us use it. This is about the man. But he got in trouble for a very simple reason, because he was involved with borrowing a lot of money, and he did something with the banks. I don't know if it's defrauded the banks, but something happened. You guys know what it is. And then in addition to that, he gave up on 3 things where he wasn't guilty. In fact, they were going to testify in that. The head of the FEC, the Brad Smith, the election expert, #1 rated in the country, was going to testify. He took a plea on 3 things. He just added them in because that gave him more bargaining power with respect to me. But the 3 things that he pled on, having to do with the election and having to do essentially a little bit with me, they weren't crimes. They weren't crimes. Nor is paying money under an NDA. So we have an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. It's a big deal, a non-disclosure agreement. Totally honorable, totally good, totally accepted. Everybody has them. Every company has non-disclosure agreements. But the press called it slush fund and all sorts of other things. Hush money, hush money. It's not hush money. It's called a non-disclosure agreement. And most of the people in this room have a non-disclosure agreement with their company. It's a disgrace. So it's not hush money. It's a non-disclosure agreement, totally legal, totally common. Everyone has it. And what happened is he signed a non-disclosure agreement with this person, I guess other people, but it's totally honest. You're allowed to make the payment. You can make it any way you want. It's a non-disclosure agreement. And he signed that. And there was nothing wrong with signing it. And this should have been a non-case. And everybody said it was a non-case, including Bragg. Bragg said, until I ran for office. And then they saw the polls. I was leading the Republicans. I was leading the Democrats. I was leading everybody. And all of a sudden, they brought it back. It's a very sad thing that's happening in our country. And it's a thing that I'm honored. In a way, I'm honored. It's not that it's pleasant. It's very bad for family. It's very bad for friends and businesses. But I'm honored to be involved in it because somebody has to do it. And I might as well keep going and be the one. But I'm very honored to be involved because we're fighting for our Constitution. The money that was paid legally. There was nothing illegal. In fact, the lawyer in creating the NDA, because at that time he was a fully accredited lawyer. He wasn't a fixer. I never thought of him as a fixer. The media called him a fixer, or the prosecutors called him a fixer. He was a lawyer, and he was fairly good. Later on, I didn't like what he did. I didn't like, for instance, I didn't like that when I became president, he went around and made deals with companies. When I heard that, he was gone. He was gone. And he had payments coming to him, and a lot of this involved things that are very simple. There was nothing wrong. This was standard stuff. All
he's talking about Michael
standard
Cohen
stuff.
right now.
Everything involved was standard. There was no crime
off
here.
Limits.
In fact, I just watched a couple of the reports. You watched Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Greg Jarrett. You look at all of these people. Mark Levin, all very talented people, great people, many more. And they don't know me, essentially. They don't know me. They're legal scholars and experts. But I look at them. I watched Turley this morning saying, there's no crime here. Everybody says there's no crime here, except for this DA that's got the city out of control with crime. It's absolutely out of control. So we have an NDA that was signed. We have legal expenses. And here's the thing. On legal expenses, you have 100 where they say they do a charge. I just recorded this out. Falsification of business records in the first degree. It sounds so bad. I said, wow. And even my own lawyers, I get very upset with them because they don't say what it is. They say, well, falsification of legal records is only a felony. Well, that's a lot. It's only they say a misdemeanor. But they try and bring it up to a felony if there's 2 crimes. They have all these different things. The other thing is they missed the statute of limitations by a lot because this was very old. They could have brought this 7 years ago instead of bringing it right in the middle of the election. So they missed the statute of limitations. They did everything. Now, let me give you the good news. The good news is last night, we just got a report this morning, in the history of politics, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, somebody will find that I'm wrong, maybe, but I don't think so. They raised with small money donors, meaning like $21, $42, $53, $38, a record $39 million, about a 10-hour period.
Wow.
No, think of that.
Wow. Wow.
I like those people.
$39 million in 10 hours? Biden's having a heart attack
right now. I guess
right
it's
now.
backfiring. Now, I don't know. I'd rather not have it happen. I don't want to have it backfiring. I want to win this thing legitimately, not because they were stupid and did things that they shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't have brought this case. They were saying it this morning. This is a case that should not have been brought. I watched Andy McCarthy say this is a case that should not have been brought, and that was this morning. But they all say that. Every legal scholar has said it. And these are great people. They really understand the law. The other thing, a poll just came out. The first poll, I don't know, maybe others will be bad, but a poll just came out a little while ago. The Daily Mail. Does anybody read the Daily Mail? Very good. They have a good poll. At least I like it today. And the Daily Mail just came out with a poll, and it has Trump up 6 points in the last 12 hours. 6 points. 6 points since this happened. Who thought this could happen? Because the people of our country know it's a hoax. They know it's a hoax. They get it. You know, they're really smart, and it's really something. So we're going to be appealing this scam. We're going to be appealing it on many different things. He wouldn't allow us to have witnesses. He wouldn't allow us to talk. He wouldn't allow us to do anything. The judge was a tyrant, and you got to see that with Bob Costello. A fine man. I've never seen anything like it, and neither has anybody that was in that courthouse where he demanded that the courthouse be cleared. Now, the good news is most of the people in the courthouse were the media, and anybody that was in the media, if you're fair, you'll say, wow, that was anger. That was crazed. He was crazed. And the reason that Bob Costello acted a little bit upset, which I think he has a right to, was that every question he was being asked was being objected to by the other side and sustained by the judge. Sustained. I think he did it many times. I don't know what the number, many times. Even I was sitting there saying, and these were basic questions. I never saw anybody treated that way by a judge, and I've been treated very badly by 2 other judges also, because it's all the same thing. And it all comes out of the White House. Crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country. He's the worst president in the history of our country. The most incompetent. He's the dumbest president we've ever had. He's the dumbest president, most incompetent president, and he's the most dishonest president we've ever had. And so many of he's a Manchurian candidate. You take a look at the way he treats China, Russia, so many others. You know, I ended the Russian pipeline. It was dead. He comes in and he approves it. And he gets $3.5 million, meaning $3.5 million is paid to the family, his family, from the mayor of Moscow's wife. And I said, where did that come from? Nobody wants to talk about it. But he's a very big danger to our country. And the only way they think they can win this election is by doing exactly what they're doing right now. Win it in the courts because they can't win it at the ballot box. So we're going to show them that we're going to fight. It's actually, I don't know, it's something where I'm wired in such a way that a lot of people would have gone away a long time ago. They would have gone away after impeachment hoax number 1. That was a total hoax. I had great support from the Republican Party, though. Then you had impeachment hoax number 2. And then they formed the committee. How about they formed the committee of thugs, the J6 committee of thugs. And they took their records and they destroyed all of the records after the committee was abandoned because those records were great for us. Now, can you imagine if Republicans did that? Everybody would have been in jail by now. Think of it. The unselect, I call it the unselect. They call it select committee. I call it the unselect committee of thugs. They meet. It's 100% Democrat and 2 past Republicans that are no longer Republicans, that are no longer in business anymore. Thank you. But it was all Democrats and 2 wayward Republicans. Liz Cheney and crying Adam Kinzinger. He cries every time he goes on television. He's the most emotional human being I think I've ever seen. And that was our representatives. These 2 people were our reps. So they had all this stuff that they're leaking. And then when it came time to look at the records, like where the police said and the Capitol Guard said that I supplied, think of it, that I recommended as many soldiers or National Guard as you want. 10,000. If you had 500, you wouldn't have had a problem. There wouldn't have been a J6. But Nancy Pelosi and the group didn't want it. Anyway, so they have testimony to all of that I did not attack the Secret Service agent in the front of a car. You know, these are strong people. And I supposedly went to the driver and I grabbed him around the neck and he rebuffed me. And then I went to the other guy who I think is a black belt in karate. And he's slightly younger than me, maybe 35 years, 40 years, 50 years. And I grabbed him around the neck and said, he's a black belt in karate. They know how to get somebody from around their neck.
Take me to the Capitol.
They would have gone like this and that would be the end of that.
Clavicle girl, Cassidy Hutchinson.
Actually, I had a friend that said, you shouldn't dispute that. That makes you look like the toughest cookie we've ever seen. You should have let that go on.
Take it over.
But the fact is, it never happened. It was all made up. And that was proven to be made up. It proved to be a false story. And they deleted and destroyed all of that information, every ounce of it. We're dealing with a corrupt government. We have a corrupt country. Our elections are corrupt. Our borders are open. Our borders are going to be closed very soon. November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. Now, when I say that, because my people are always saying, do this, because we're fighting for America, DonaldJTrump.com. I hope everybody watching right now, DonaldJTrump.com, because it really makes a difference. influence. They have a lot of money on the other side. I don't know where they get it. Nobody knows where they get it. But for
billionaires,
some reason, they get money.
Zuckerberg, Soros.
But they're not on the side of our country. In many ways, I think they hate our country. Who on earth can want open borders where people are allowed to pour in from countries unknown, from places unknown, from languages that we haven't even heard of? We have people sitting in schools with languages where very few people have ever even heard of these languages. It's not like Spanish or French or Russian. Languages unknown. We have people coming from corners of the globe, and many of them are not good people. Many terrorists, record levels of terrorism, record levels of terrorists have come into our country. Record. They've never seen anything like it. You know, there was a report that in 2019, I don't believe this, by the way, the media gave it, and it was good for me, believe it or not. They said in 2019, there were no terrorists recorded that came into our country. I don't believe that. I don't think that's possible. But 2019 was a Trump year. I don't believe that that could be possible. But they said no terrorists came into our country. So let's say it was close. But now record levels of terrorists, record levels, the highest level we've ever seen of terrorists are pouring into our country. You have China with just in the last few months, 29,000 people came in, and I looked at them on a line, and they look like perfect soldiers. They're almost all male, from 19 to 25. It looks like a recruiting exercise. They have beautiful tents. They have propane stoves. They have cell phones, the best you can buy. I said, what's going on? It looks like they're building an army right in our country. Now, I don't think that would happen, right? We're losing our country. And I really think that this is an event, what took place yesterday with this judge. Look, we have conflicted, but he's a crooked judge, and you'll understand that. And I say that knowing that it's very dangerous for me to say that, and I don't mind, because I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to save our country and to save our Constitution. I don't mind. So we will continue the fight. We're going to make America great again. Very simple. When people fight MAGA, they say, we're going to fight. I watch Biden. We're going to fight MAGA. We're going to stop MAGA. It's make America great again. That's all it is. MAGA. Make America great again. Our country's in serious trouble. We owe $36 trillion. We were energy independent for the first time ever, and now we're begging Venezuela for oil. One statistic you have to hear. Venezuela was crime-ridden. Caracas, the cities, crime-ridden. 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They just reported a 72% drop in crime in the last year because all of their criminals, most of them, and the rest are coming in now, the ones that didn't come in. In Venezuela, their prisons have been emptied into the United States. Their criminals and drug dealers have been taken out of the cities and brought into the United States. And that's true with many other countries. The Congo has just released a lot of people from jail. Congo, Africa, just released a lot of people from their prisons and jails and brought them into the United States of America. This is what's happening to our country, and it's not sustainable by anyone. Little things like our kids can't have a Little League game anymore because you have tents and you have migrants living on the fields. That's the least of it. People are taking over our luxury hotels, migrants, and yet our veterans, our great veterans, are living on the streets like dogs. They're living on the streets. But migrants are living in luxury hotels in cities all over our country run by Democrats. So,
leaf blower guys here.
It's my honor to be doing this. It really is. It's a very unpleasant thing, to be honed, but it's a great honor. We're gonna do what I have to do. I'm gonna do it, and the support has been. That's why I mentioned the number of $39 million. That's why I mentioned we're up 6 points, and we went up a lot over the last month because everybody saw it was a rigged deal. It was a rigged trial. But we're gonna make America great again. We're gonna make it better than ever before. November 5th. Remember, November 5th is the most important day in the history of our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. President. And
President
Trump is now off. That took place at Trump Tower. Very interesting speech. He made a big announcement today. My goodness. $39 million in 10 hours is a lot of donos. That's a lot of super chats that came in. And so very good news for the president. A couple other quick points on this. We're a little worried about that gag order. So as he was speaking and some people were commenting on this, we're hearing him talk about Michael Cohen. We heard him talk about Robert Costello. Question is, was that a violation of the gag order? So as he was speaking, I pulled up the revised gag order. This is the new one that came out. He entered this one on April 1st. This is the one that came out on April 1st. And you can see this is the second amended gag order. And here are the specifics of it. So this is still in effect. Okay, Trump came out yesterday, or actually this morning, and came out and confirmed this is still in effect. He said, I can't talk about this stuff. So, and then he proceeded to kind of talk about it. So here is what it says. I don't know that he's in automatic hot water. So let's look. Here is what he is directed to refrain from doing: making or directing others to make public statements, making or directing others to make public statements. So he came out today, and we have not read the transcripts from yesterday's proceedings. So I don't know if there was some, lifting of the gag or anything like that happened. We were just going off of what was being reported. So if there is something in the transcripts about some modifications of this, we're commenting on it without that knowledge. But as it stands, as far as we know, this is still in effect, at least through sentencing, and then he'll probably be on probation pending appeal. So here is what this looks like is still in effect. Making or directing others to make public statements. Now, Trump actually did that today, right? He came out and said, I can't talk about it, but you can. So the government might come out and say that was directing other people to make a statement, but it's about known or reasonably foreseeable witnesses. So that's over. So we don't really need to worry about reasonably foreseeable because we don't have any more witnesses. So how about make public statements about known witnesses concerning their potential participation in the investigation, which is now done, or in this criminal proceeding. So could a government prosecutor read it as either making a statement about a known witness concerning their participation in this criminal proceeding, which is not over? Robert Costello, Michael Cohen, maybe Michael Cohen will have, for example, a sentencing letter. Maybe something might impact what he says at sentencing or does at sentencing, and so he's still technically involved in the criminal proceeding until Trump is sentenced. Maybe the pretrial services who does their pre-sentencing report, maybe they want to talk to Cohen. Maybe they have other things they want to do. So could a government prosecutor say Trump made a statement about Cohen in the middle of this criminal proceeding? Yeah, of course they could. Making or directing others to make public statements about lawyers in the case other than the DA, members of the court staff, I don't think we heard that today, family members of counsel, staff members of the court, DA, if they're made to interfere. And then this one, of course, is done, right? So subsection C is over, because making or directing others to make public statements about any prospective juror, maybe not. I think actually this is probably still in play, and he didn't really comment on the jurors today. Making or directing others to make public statements about any prospective juror, so they're no longer prospective, they were the jurors, or any juror in this criminal proceeding, which is not over yet, not until the sentence is over. So I'm sure the judge was listening to that, and I'm sure Alvin Bragg is probably preparing a motion, and the judge still has time to sentence Trump, and they might move just like we've seen in other filings here for a modification of release conditions or to accelerate sentencing or for another contempt proceeding. So interesting thing that we just saw there today. So Trump came out and he spoke on this, and we know his chances on appeal are good, but his address to America explained a recap of everything that he witnessed. He talked about the judge, about how he's biased. He talked about some other witnesses, and very clearly Michael Cohen and Robert Costello. And what we didn't hear much of was whether there were any policy changes. So is Trump going to do anything in the new administration, or is the campaign going to be focused on anything? It was more of a recap, talking about some other policy issues that he's interested in, like the border and why Joe Biden is incompetent and the usual campaign fare. But big news, $39 million in 10 hours. That's why the website went down. A lot of people interested in supporting him now that may have been on the sidelines previously. They're no longer staying seated. And of course, we are going to be here as we continue our coverage of this case. Trump announcing he is going to appeal. That's going to be great news. And so if you enjoyed this video, be sure you check out our next segment, because we're talking about what's happening in Florida. And that's just as important now that this trial's over. That's where a big part of our attention is going next.